right, guys. Welcome to another episode of the COTACast. My name is Brian Bermudez, and I'm the host of the Craft of the Air podcast, the aviation podcast that really just expands your knowledge in each and every episode. Join me and my guest as we explore the untold world of aviation together. I'm so glad that you guys are tuned in for this episode because I have somebody very special that I've wanted on the show for quite a while. One of my former students, Jhoan, is here joining us live from the flight line. And Jhoan, thank you so much for being a part of this episode and joining us on this episode of the CODAcast.
Anytime, Brian. You know we're here.
Man, first of all, it's been a while since you were a student at Vaughn College, and since you started at college, you graduated, you got your college degree, you got your A and P licenses, you're a certified aircraft maintenance engineer. I'll say that. And now you're out there on the line. How has it been? Just give us a rundown. How has it been getting out there? Has it exceeded your expectations? Is it kind of what you expected? Give us a rundown.
Uh, it's kind of what I was expecting, but then up to an extent, but then it's not because over here, like compared to what you learn in school, when you're on the field, it's completely different. There's a lot more
Yeah,
it's a lot more complex, and you actually get to learn the plane more. You get to see how everything works. The systems is different than what they teach you in school,
yeah,
but and I'll say it's a lot easier to understand it when you're working on the aircraft than it is for someone to just be in the classroom and telling you, oh, like this does this, or this is how this works. When you actually get to see the component, you understand how everything is working. It makes a lot more sense because you put A and B together and you're like, oh, so
yeah.
this does that, or this is made for this purpose. There's a lot more complex and it's a lot easier to understand, especially
Easier
when
in a
you
way,
have,
right?
yeah, especially when you have
Yeah.
somebody with experience there helping you out. It makes the way that you have to learn of everything a lot easier and more just straight up to the point.
Johan, give the listeners and the viewers a little bit about your background and what led you to going to college and pursuing aviation maintenance as a degree.
So I came from the Dominican Republic when I was 9. I had to basically teach myself Spanish. It was a tough ride at the beginning because I couldn't understand nobody. So it was just like I was just that one kid on the side that didn't really understand anything. So
Yeah,
it was a little hard for me. Like I wanted to speak up, but then I couldn't because of the language barrier. But then I told myself, I put a goal. I was like, by this amount of time, I want to be able to understand and read English. So I will go every day. You'll see me on YouTube, looking
mm,
at classes. You'll see me on Duolingo, trying to learn, read, write it out. So at the beginning, it was a little tough, but the aircraft aviation have always caught my attention since I was a little kid. I remember when I first came here, I flew with Blue. It was A320, if I'm not
yep.
mistaken. And ever since that day, like I always been interested about planes. Like, yo, I want to learn. I want to know how this works. I want to see like how can you. It was so cool to me. Like, oh, you could use this big ass bird. Basically, is a bird, a flying bird, to go from point A to point B, and we didn't even know how the systems work. Like,
Yeah,
how is it made up? Like, how can this thing fly?
yeah.
So at the beginning, when I started at Vaughn, I don't know if I told you this, but I did a whole semester in doing mechanical engineering.
You mentioned that. How did that go? Tell them
So
about it.
in when I first started at Vaughn, I thought the mechanical engineering program was the ATI program. So that's
Yeah,
why I did it on the first place. So then as I'm going through it, I'm not gonna lie to you, I liked it because I already knew some coding. So it wasn't like you do a lot of coding, and like doing projects, parts, and things like that. But it's completely different to what I wanted to do. Like I
right.
enjoyed it. I still did the semester, but it wasn't what I was looking for. Like I was telling myself, like, oh, I don't want to sit in a computer all day
I
just
was gonna
doing
ask you, it was
blueprints.
something more hands-on, something different every day that
Yeah,
you needed to be doing. Right.
yeah. So I had a different perspective on the class than what I was actually looking for. Because I thought the
It,
mechanical engineering program was the A&P
yeah,
program, which was completely different. And then one of my friends, I think you had him as a student as well, John Gomez. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, so he
Yes, of
was the
course.
one who introduced me to the AMP program because he was like, "Oh, look, this is what you're looking for. That's what I'm doing right now." So at the
Yeah.
time when he told me that, I was already mid into the semester, so I had to finish it. I couldn't just switch in the middle. So I did my time as a mechanical engineer, did the whole semester, and then I swapped and went to do the ATI program, and I don't regret it, man. Now we're here.
When I saw, and it's incredible because for the people watching or listening, Johan, he taught himself a second language essentially, and this was the type of student that he would be in my classes teaching other students things that they didn't know how to do. So he was just sharing his knowledge, and you're a very quick learner, I remember, and you're really good at explaining things to your other classmates. I was going to ask about the importance of sharing stories with other mechanics and other students. And that's a perfect example right there. If Mr. Gomez wasn't speaking to you and you were in those mechanical classes, you would have maybe not realized it until another
Yeah,
semester or so had gone on.
yeah, but I would
You
have still
know,
been doing the mechanical engineering program.
when you think back at A&P school and now transitioning out there onto the line, what's really the most surprising or difficult part from transitioning from school or college to being on the line, working
I'll
out there?
say the biggest difference is that when you're in A&P school, like you're getting ready to take the test. It's completely different. Like you got to do point A to get to point B.
Hmm.
Like when they give you homework, you got to study this X amount of subjects in order to prepare for your test. Whatever test you have coming up, yeah. So you got to get ready. Now, when you're on the line, it's like there'll be days that I still go home and I'll be like, "Damn, I really just fixed this plane." Like I'll be asking myself, I'll be like, "Oh, it's just amazing," because I never thought I was gonna make it to this point. To be
Yeah,
honest, I knew I was gonna make it far, but I didn't know how far I was gonna make it. It was a little like, okay. So when I got my MP, I'm like, damn, like I finished school now. Like, what do I do from this point on?
what happens now? Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like I felt great. It feels good because it's like, yo, you studied this hard to get this. Now you got it. Now what you got to do about it?
yeah,
So in that sense, I'll say the biggest difference is that when you on the line, you actually depending on who you're working with and the people that you're with, most of the times you got to teach yourself certain things, and then most of the time you're learning from the old mechanics. So I
right.
say when you out here, you basically got to tell yourself like, I'm not gonna stick to just one thing. I actually want to learn. So you gotta push yourself to learn things and be like, oh, let me just do this. And if I get stuck or anything, let me just ask an older
Yeah,
mechanic. But just don't go straight to the older mechanic or like tell them, oh, I can't do it unless you try it. Or you can ask them for an opinion, like, oh, how would you go about this?
yeah, of
Which is
course.
usually what I did when I was on probation. I would ask them questions. Or
Smart.
when I see them watching, when I would see them doing a problem that I never done before, I just go up to them and ask them, like, "Oh, what you doing?" So they'll break it down to me. So next time we'll get it, I'll be
Now
like,
you
"Yo, I
know
want
how
to
to
do
do
this.
it.
Yeah, I want to do
Yes.
it. Let me see if I could get it done. If I would get stuck, I'll call them. There's a lot of mechanics here that I know that help me out a lot. Grateful for them, but it's basically not sticking to the same thing. Like you're not always gonna stick
Yeah.
to doing service checks. If you do that, you're not gonna learn nothing. I'm telling you that
You're gonna do the
straight from the back.
same thing
Yeah,
over and
you're gonna
over
keep doing.
again.
If you keep doing service checks, you're gonna master it. But it's like, well, are you really learning something? You're not learning. You're not learning nothing other than
Yeah,
checking the aircraft and to see
yeah.
if this is good.
Would you say how did or was there any classes, specific classes, or how was your time in A&P school? How did that help you out there or prepare you for the realities that you're facing out there right now?
I'll say one of the classes that helped me out a lot was your class, specifically the electricity class.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and I remember Mo's class, Mohi.
avionics.
Yeah, avionics. You definitely
Yep,
use that a lot.
it's
And
a
I'll
very good
say
teacher.
I'll lose his class and Dejan's class in a way because I remember when we was doing the spark plugs in Dejan's class in PP53 where you got to take out
Ignition
the whole engine.
systems.
Yeah,
Yep.
we that's something that you see a lot when you're doing a borescope inspection. You have to take them out depending on if you're having a spark plug problem or if you got to check a component inside. So depending on what type of problem you have, uh, the inspector will tell you like what you have to take out. So seeing that
Mm,
already, like while I was in A&P school, I already know what I had to target. So I just go
interesting.
do my thing, and then I remember the same component that we put in it when you putting it back on, when you're putting a new spark plug, was the same component used that one. So it was
Hmm.
basically kind of the same concept, just different engine.
Interesting. You mentioned Vong and you mentioned the this wisdom and the knowledge that you were able to get from these good classes. Would you say that you had any mentors or some defining experiences that have shaped your career? Because you've already being such a mechanic, you're already taking that initiative to learn more. You're getting more experience in the short amount of time that you've been there. Who's helped you try to kind of gear towards this path that you're carving out?
I'll say here, work wise, I have this guy, his name is Double Torres. He helped me out a lot. Like basically when I first started here, he's also Dominican. He took me under his wing because he saw himself like a younger him, and
Mm,
so he will always tell the lead to pair me up with him, and he basically taught me a lot. Like I'll say up to like 90 to 85% of what I know now.
wow. Wow.
So it made it a lot easier to understand things on the aircraft when I was working with him because he'll ask me, he'll be like, "Oh, you know why we're doing this, right? Or you know what this does." So he was
Mm,
basically just breaking things down for me and not just throwing me in there and be like, "Oh,
right.
change this component." So
That's it.
he'll help me. He helped me out a lot. I really appreciate him.
And that's something that's going to shape the rest of your career. That's a good foundation now that you're able to get, and now you're able to build upon that. So that's tremendous. Speaking about being Hispanic, we're both Hispanic. I'm Puerto Rican, Dominican
Yep.
over here. We're out in the Caribbean, man. But how has your heritage influenced your journey in aviation? I know you mentioned, that flight that you took as a young kid coming over here on that Airbus, but has it influenced maybe your decisions in the company that you want to work for? Maybe you want to see more of your family out there. How has it impacted your
It
heritage?
does, because if you think about it, when you got planes that are going overseas, just not to the Caribbean, but anywhere where you see a plane that has to go on the water, over the water, or anywhere around the world, you always think like instead of just doing your job and not checking it, you always gotta double check it, because then now you got
Hmm.
the mentality of what if that's my family on that plane, or what is that
Yes.
one of my friends was on that plane. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing or whatever you're signing off, you're doing it correctly. You're just not doing it because, oh, I think it's good. So you always have that like that voice in the back of your head telling you like, oh, did you double check this? Is this good?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it influences you a lot on to be able to second always like second look at your work, like verify your work, make sure everything's good. And if you don't know
Everything's
something,
safe.
just ask.
Yeah. Good point.
That's the biggest. That's the biggest
Good
thing.
point.
You always gotta ask, no matter what.
That, Well, let me ask you something, and those are really good, those are wise words that Johan mentions here. What's some advice that you would give to some younger students that are coming into this, maybe from the same backgrounds, diverse backgrounds that you and I come from, or maybe just any student coming into aviation maintenance and thinking about it, maybe they're unsure. What's a piece of advice that you would give them?
I'll I'll say, if you don't know something, always ask. Just don't do something because you think you're doing it right.
Hmm.
If you're not sure of what you're doing, or you feel like it's not safe, just always go ask somebody that has already done the job or somebody that has more knowledge than you. Just don't go
Yes.
out there and be like, oh, sign up your work and be like, it's good just because I think so. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's your license on the line.
Yeah.
You saying that's good.
Yeah.
So it only takes about 2 seconds, a minute to go ask one of your buddies, oh, can you take a look at this? I'm not too sure if this is good. Or how will you go about this? Or am I doing it correctly? Never be scared to
Exactly.
ask. In this
And
aviation world, you always
it,
got to ask questions.
in A&P school, it could save you. Asking a question can save you from passing a test. Out there, it could save people's lives if you ask a question for doing it. So that's a great point, you know? So run us through a typical day. A lot of people always ask me this. They're like, "What is it? What is it being like out there when you finally go out there working at night?" Run us through a quick typical night and how it is working out there on the line.
I mean, when you first start the night, you know for sure you're gonna have a check. So that is either a PS check, service check, transit check. It don't matter. You're always gonna have a check,
Yes.
no matter what. Other than that, I'll say that one thing that I have learned throughout the time I've been here is that you never start a job until you know you have all the components.
Mm.
That could save you from AOGing a plane or from actually doing the job or just deferring the job in general.
I
You
was gonna say, yep.
you never want to take a component apart knowing that you don't have one in stock because it could go either two ways. You can either put the component back and defer it, but most of the times when you take out a component, it's like you went through the struggle. Why would you put it back in the first place?
Yeah.
So it could save you a lot of time just double checking that you have everything in stock. That make sure you always got all your tools, the correct tools for
Yeah.
whatever job
Good
you're
point.
doing. It could save you a lot of time from just having the correct tool to just having a tool that you think might do the job.
Yeah, right.
Like
Good
like
point.
a like when you have the correct tool, if you have a job that would take you normally an hour or let's say 45 minutes, if you have everything correctly, yeah, you could get it done. Now, if you have the tools that are not correct for it, that 1 hour job could turn into three, four, or a
Yeah,
whole night.
for
I seen
real.
that happen. It happened to me at the beginning.
Let
Seen
me
that
ask you
happen.
that was my next question I was going to ask you. Can you think of one of the most challenging or the more challenging jobs or aircraft that you've gotten out there that you're like thinking to yourself, man,
The
I don't even know how I did that.
the PRSOV valve we had about
Oh,
2 weeks ago on the LEAP engine. Oh, that's a pain. That's a pain.
how long
One,
did
you
that
gotta
job take you?
all night, all night.
Man,
That
tell
was
them a little
that.
bit about it. Tell them a little bit about
So
this thing.
it's
It's
a lot.
wild.
It's difficult because you got a lot of components around it. So even if you like, it looks good. It looks easy until you start doing it. Like when I looked at it, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is quick. Two clamps, boom, boom. That's it. Take that, a few lines, and then it's gonna come right out." Yeah, when you start doing it, completely different. Goes
Oh, yeah.
it goes south. So
You-
when you start loosening everything up, you have a lot of lines around it, and since it's been in the engine for so long, most of the times it gets seized up.
Yeah.
So when you're doing it and you try to wiggle it out, you really don't have that much wiggle room. Even when you take some of the lines off, you still don't have a lot of playroom on how to
There's no
like move
play
the
there.
component.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically have to use your like your knowledge as a mechanic. Like, oh, how will I go about it? Like, where can I get a better grip? Where can I look at it?
How can I
Like,
bend my body in this way that I can
yeah.
get extra leverage? Yes.
So it took us about 2 hours to take it out.
Jeez.
So now listen to this. So when we put all right, we take it out, boom. Okay. So when we put it back on, now the clamps won't close. So we got it aligned and everything, boom, we putting everything back on, we torquing everything down. When it gets to putting the clamps on, it took us about at least almost an hour closing the clamps because it
Jeez.
didn't want to close. And we was on like I'll say one thing that saved us a couple like
Mm,
a little extra time was that we had the correct tools because it wasn't just me, it was a couple
good.
of
Yeah.
us. But the thing is that even if you have the correct tools, there's certain jobs that when you do it for the first time, it's gonna take you forever because you
Oh
don't know how
yeah.
to go
No.
about it.
Yeah.
But then you learn as you go. You learn things like, oh, if I would have taken this line off, it would have been a lot easier for me to
Right.
just try to pull it down.
I could have laid this way and I could have done this first. Right. Yeah. You learn a
But
better
you
method.
You don't know that at the beginning. At the beginning, you're just
Mm.
looking at it and you're just trying to put A and B. And then if you follow the manual, sometimes the manual might throw you in the right direction, but then it might tell you to take off things that you don't really have to take off.
Yeah. It
So
it really is. It really is, and a lot of people don't understand. You're looking at a maintenance manual that's 30,000 pages. Somebody or a lawyer writes it somewhere and it's just written like it's just verbiage. So you have to interpret it and then you got to go do the job. So like you said at first, you're looking at the AMA and you're like, this is easy. It's two clamps. And you go out there and it's a shit
it's
show.
completely different.
Yeah.
So it was a tedious job, but I'll say that whenever I get it again, it wouldn't take me a whole night because I
Yeah.
already have an idea of how I would take it out. How would I go about it in a different way to
Let me
make
ask
it.
you this. I think so much about this now that you're talking about this, and what is the most rewarding part of your job? Is it getting that done? Is it what you mentioned earlier, just having the satisfaction of, man, I'm able to, I fixed an airplane. This thing is flying right now, you know?
Yeah, I think it's that, like just going home and
Yeah.
being like, damn, I really just did that. Like that plane is really
Yeah.
flying because I fixed it.
Yeah.
Or because we fixed it as a team. So it makes you feel good. It makes
Yeah.
you in a way challenge yourself about the knowledge you have learned.
Mm,
So it feels good.
yeah. And it's a special thing. Does it ever, this is a question I was just thinking of. Does the pressure ever weigh on your mind? If you think about a job that you did and you're heading home, you're driving home in the morning after a 12-hour shift, you're fixing a plane all night, and you're thinking to yourself, man, 260 passengers on that plane. Did I fix that? Did I do that? Did I tighten that? Did I do everything I can? Does that ever get to you? That pressure and
At
stress?
the beginning when I first started, yeah, because
Okay.
I will always just keep guessing on my head, like, yo, did I do this? Or did I
Yeah.
forget something? Did I leave this too? So it's like it's a mental game that you gotta. It's like a
Right.
mental game that you always have playing back and forth. But as you go, and you learn more, and you actually keep double checking your work, and you just have a partner that's actually uh
That's
double
important.
checking that with you, and you could trust him, and he trusts you. It's a lot more different because there'll be times that you might forget to do something, and he catches it, but you don't.
Yeah. You'll become more confident in a way,
Yeah.
in your work and your abilities. You don't second guess yourself as much, I guess, as you progress as a mechanic. I guess all of us are that
Yep.
way in some piece. I think it, and I don't want to keep you for too long. There's so many things I wanted to ask you, really, but there are, what are some common myths about aviation maintenance that you like to debunk right now? A lot of people have these misconceptions and these ideas. What's a common myth that you're like, nah, that's not the way it is. Don't think that
I'll
way.
say a common myth is how people will go when I don't know, man, but I don't know if you ever got this feeling that let's say the passengers is boarding and then they hear that maintenance is coming up in the plane, they just all stare you down like, oh, what's going down? Or like,
Yes.
what's gonna happen? It's weird. Like, I
Yes.
don't know, man, because you go up there, you're trying to speak to the pilots, and then out of nowhere, you feel like everybody's just looking at you. Like, you
Hundreds
feel
of
the whole
people
world.
are staring at you.
But it's like I
Yeah.
always say to myself, if a plane, let's say the pilot said the plane can go out because of maintenance, I prefer for a plane or a flight to get canceled because of maintenance
Oh yeah.
than for me to just travel on a plane that I know that has problems.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing. A lot of people don't see it that way because obviously I used to think the same thing. But
Right. As a
until
passenger. Yeah.
but until you really work in this field and you work as a mechanic or you know how everything is working, you're not gonna understand that because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
you're a passenger. You're just trying to get from point A to point B. So I'll say that one perspective that people have towards mechanics is that they every time we go up there, they get scared. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's something bad. They automatically assume something bad. It's threatening the flight immediately. Yeah.
So it's weird. I always say to myself now, because I used to think the same way. If a plane can't fly because of maintenance and there's something really wrong, then just take a chill. And if you could get
Yeah,
into another plane or another flight later on that
right.
day or the following day, then just take it. At least you know that when you're leaving, you're gonna leave on a safe flight and that the
Exactly.
plane's gonna be good.
Yep. Where do you see, Johan, where do you see aviation maintenance and the industry heading? What should students be excited about in
I'll,
aviation maintenance?
I'll say whoever has the privilege of getting their A&P license as soon as possible, I'll recommend everybody to get it because if you look at it from now to how it was before you needed 5 to 10, 15 years of
Yeah,
experience to even get into a major airline. Now you coming in straight out of school.
yeah, true. Good point.
Some people don't see the opportunity that they have. Like even in American, for you to get into American, you need what 5 plus years
Yeah,
of experience. And now you literally come out of school and it's like it's there for you as long
yeah,
as you want it. But I would say I'll encourage everybody to just finish their classes, study now. It's worth it. It takes a while, but it's worth it for people to start studying now because when you get to that point where you right there and you got to take your orders and practicals, you already know that you feel ready and you don't have to go over so much
yeah,
content at the same time.
yeah,
So I'll
yeah,
encourage everybody just start studying now. Even doing the prep work, like
yeah.
getting ready for the writtens. Everybody should start from the beginning, from the first semester.
Good point. Yeah, from the very first semester, you know?
Especially with the privilege they have now that you're able to take your written, your general written now, and then you're able to take your airframe written later. Like you remember with us, it was
Yeah,
GGL2, and it was both
yeah,
airframe
yeah.
in general.
I'll ask you real quickly, what one of the last things is how has your personal life changed, Johan? I know as you're getting ready to go to your next aircraft right now, working at nights, working maybe sometimes 4 days on, 3 days off. How has your personal life changed? For the better, for the worse? Kind of the ch different? Is it healthier? Is it
I'll
more chaotic?
I'll say it's more chaotic because you don't feel like a regular person. Like a regular person will go, what, you get out of work 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then
Yeah,
you go home and you sleep. That's literally the time we're getting up to come into it,
yeah,
to go to
yeah,
sleep the next day. So it's like, and there'll be times that you get home and you try to sleep and you can't.
yeah. You
Because
can't
your
go to
body
sleep
is
at that
like,
time. Your body is not natural.
yeah, it doesn't make sense for it. It's like your body just wants to keep running, running.
Yeah,
So you gotta get used to it. It takes you a while. It took me a while to get used to it. Because when you start training, you're a morning shift. So you still feel
yeah,
like a no,
true.
you still feel like a more normal person. Now everything changes when you got to come into the ground and you can really get to see your schedule.
Yeah, yeah. I
So I remember
we
at the beginning, I had nights that I wouldn't go to sleep till like 11, 12 p.m. the next day, and then I'll wake up in the afternoon, and it would be like everybody's sleeping, but now I'm up,
yeah.
and it takes time, man. It takes time.
It really does. Even on the days that you're off, then you're kind of off schedule from the rest of the world at that point.
Yeah,
You
that is
know,
true.
I want to ask you one. I know that I said that was my last question, but now I got one more question. I just want to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? You see yourself getting a family, staying here in New York area, New Jersey area? You see yourself maybe moving south or going back to DR, somewhere more chill?
I would say as of now, so I'm currently in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, this
So
is right.
so as of now, I'm getting used to it. I didn't like it at the beginning.
Okay,
It was a little, I don't know. It's completely different to what I'm used to seeing and how I live down in New York. But as time went by, I got used to it. Like it's chill. I'm live like 10 minutes away from the airport.
good,
So
important.
I don't got to worry about no traffic. Like New York, if you work at JFK, you gotta leave at least 2 hours ahead of
Yeah,
time,
man. Yes.
especially with this construction. So that's a
Yes.
plus. And I think if I was to transfer later on, like not now, but in the future, I'll probably transfer down to like Miami or someplace down there.
Yeah.
Miami, DFW, just any one of those places. But as of now, I'm just getting used to staying here, and I can't complain about it, man. It's been a
Yeah.
tough ride, but then it's been a ride where I learned a lot, and it really teaches you a lot about the aviation world, how small it is, because you get to see people that you'll meet that they know your friends, but you don't know that they know your friends.
Yeah.
So, for example, you remember Maquez Nunez, right?
Yeah.
Like the other day, I'm here and I'm working, and he calls me on FaceTime. He works for American, but he works in LGA. So I'm working, and then I don't know where he tells me, "Yeah, my uncle works over there." And I was like, "What's his name?"
Wow.
So he told me his uncle's name, and literally we played dominoes together. Yeah,
That's the small world of aviation right there.
you never know who you're gonna meet.
Nah,
So that's
nah.
another thing I would tell people. You should always treat everybody with
Good point.
respect, no matter what, because you never know who might look out for you or who you're gonna
Yeah,
meet
that's
later
true.
on today.
That's so true.
So yeah, and the aviation world is very small. Like you'll know people that live here, and they know people from New York that you don't even know they know.
Yeah. Yeah, or an instructor that you had is somebody they had, or it's incredible how small aviation
Yeah,
maintenance is.
it's a small world.
Yeah. Johan, I know that you are having a busy night. He is on the flight line and he took the time out to be on this episode. But I want to thank you for being on this episode of the COTACast. We're gonna have to do a part two at some point. We're
No
gonna
problem.
when we come back from vacation, we'll non-rev and then we'll come back. We'll film an episode when we come back.
No problem. No problem.
Johan, thank you again so much for being on this episode of the COTACast. I hope you are safe out there tonight and throughout your career as a aircraft maintenance professional. You're really gonna make everyone at Vaughn really proud. Somebody really good to have working on your plane. If you see this face working anywhere around your plane, I'm confident this plane is gonna be safe. But Johan, thanks again for being on
Thank
this
you, Brian.
episode.
I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. Be safe. I'll talk to
You
you, man.
too.